just as a reminder, that I would encourage you all to always access the funding sources information directly from the RFP. So while I'll be giving you some information about these funding opportunities, to always go to the RFP as your primary source of information and the respective websites. Can you all still see my screen? Okay, great,
Yep.
thank you. All right, so let's start with the MBA Dementia Grant. This opened early in February, and you can access that that grant opportunity at this link, which I will place in the chat. And I can also provide sort of a one-pager of all of these opportunities after the presentation today. I won't provide my slides just to, again, encourage that accessing information from the RFP, but I can absolutely provide a one-pager with all the links and all of the opportunities that we talk about. There is a WebEx conference for the MBA Dementia Grant today at 1 o'clock. So right after this, I will be hopping into that WebEx conference. And if that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to do so as well. They typically do not record these WebEx meetings, but they do post the PowerPoint slides afterward, and then they do a formal question and answer page. So if you send in a question or ask a question during the responders conference, they will gather all those up and then put a formal question and answer document out for everybody to see, to ensure that everybody is working with the same information as they apply for these grant opportunities. The MBA Dementia Grant has historically had a $150,000 maximum, but this year the maximum is $250,000. And based on what I'm seeing in that RFP, that is for anybody who is applying for respite funds. So if your project proposal, and we'll talk more about the priorities of this grant opportunity in just a second. If your project proposal does not include respite, I believe your maximum is $150,000. That's how I'm interpreting it, but I'm sure we'll get clarity on that after today's WebEx conference. There is a 25% match required for projects that are $50,000 and over. And the timeline for these grants is usually around 1 year to 2 years. These are really meant to be project-based grants to get something new off the ground. And it's open to a broad scope of eligible responders, which is why we wanted to bring this one and some of these other state grants forward today, is because it's not exclusive to nonprofits. You know, often with small family foundations and things like that, you really have to be a nonprofit. And in this instance, you do not. You can be a for-profit, or you could be a local government that has a project, or a school. There's all kinds of eligible responders. The priority areas for the MBA Dementia Grant are increasing awareness around Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, increasing cognitive testing, promoting benefits of early identification in particular, and supporting family, friends, and neighbors' caregiving. And like I said, there's that fifth priority, which is increasing the availability of respite, which previously was sort of scooped in with that supporting family, friends, and neighbors caregiving. But this year there's a one-time appropriation of some additional funds that's allowing for that higher limit and that specific work around building respite programs. If this is something that you're interested in as a part of that sort of pre-application process, I certainly encourage you to check out past year's information, which is all available on that website as well. You know, looking at who was awarded in past years and what kinds of projects did they have. That doesn't mean that yours has to mirror that. It just gives you a general idea of what has been funded before, and how you might fit into this opportunity. It's just going to see. Oh, and just so you know, for this opportunity as well, a part of the application process is having a dementia knowledge capture form. And it's really, it's a spreadsheet and you can get it on the website, but it's looking to capture information about, so you're going to submit a project related to this grant opportunity. Who do you have on staff that is knowledgeable in this area and why you? And so that dementia knowledge capture form is an important component of this opportunity, to be able to demonstrate the expertise in your organization to achieve your objectives. Any thoughts or questions about this opportunity? Since it's a small group, I think I can just kind of open it up to questions as we go along.
Yeah, Sarah, I was going to ask, to what extent, if it's up to a 2-year period, what extent of a new project could there be some planning phase within it, or is it directly to implementation? Are they looking like, you know what I mean? Like if a step 1 had to do with some additional planning and then it folds into implementation, or are these ready to go projects?
I think from what I've seen, there's usually planning incorporated into proposals, but that's balanced with being able to take action within the time period that you're planning for.
Okay.
All right. Well, if you all think of other questions, we can come back to it. Live Well at Home. Lucky us, this was released on Monday. So I just updated it. It is open and available at this website. And that RFP is open through April 5th. And I forgot to mention the MBA Dementia Grant is open through April 26th. There is a WebEx Responders Conference on February 26th for Live Well at Home from 1 to 2:30. Same thing as MBA Dementia Grant. If you want to be able to see the presentation, you have to go to it live. They'll post the PowerPoint slides and then the formal questions and answers. This year, it looks like there's a total of $8 million available. Based on, I didn't get to read it word for word yet, but I looked over it briefly. It looks pretty similar to past years. Last year, there was some additional respite funding for Live Well at Home. It looks like that's not available this year. It's getting couched in the MBA Dementia Grant instead. And for this one, there's a maximum request of $350,000 with a 50% dollar for dollar match for requests above $50,000. The timeline, anticipated start date of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. That's on the website. In the RFP, it talks about a potential 2-year time frame. So that WebEx conference, again, will be a good point of reference for everybody to get some more solid details on what kind of time frame folks at the state are looking at for this opportunity. Again, broad scope of eligible responders, not exclusive to nonprofits, and partnerships are highly encouraged across multiple sectors for these opportunities. And really, the DHS Live Well at Home grant is all about enhancing our community's capacity to serve older adults in the communities where they want to live for as long as possible. And so that can happen through 3 categories or priorities of support in this grant opportunity. The first is capital and renovation grants. The second is long-term services and support development. And that's inclusive of a number of services, including chore, homemaker, caregiving, respite, healthy aging, homeless support services, and transportation. And the third category is core home and community-based services. These are smaller grants, around $40,000 to $60,000, and they are actually most specifically for like block nurse programs where there's a very specific geography. There's they're much smaller. They usually have like an operating budget of around $175,000 a year. So know that that category is quite specific. And so for those of you who fall outside of sort of that block nurse scope, you're really primarily going to be looking at that category 1 or the category 2 opportunities. Again, past recipients are all posted on the website, so you can review 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 recipients and just kind of get a sense for what kinds of projects have been funded. Same thing as MBA Dementia Grant. This is funding to get something off the ground. And so you do have to be thinking about sustainability as you consider this type of opportunity. You know, is it something that once it starts, it sort of just can continue on, or are you going to have to find other sources of revenue to keep it going? Both DHS Live Well at Home and MBA Dementia Grant are typically available annually. So if you don't feel ready to apply this year, just know that that's something that you can really keep at back of mind. And having access to all these documents is very helpful as you think about your programs and what opportunities you might want to jump into. And do some sort of long-term planning around these two funding opportunities. They are quite competitive, especially MBA Dementia Grant because it's a smaller pool of money. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a try or put your name in the hat and see what happens. Because they are great opportunities. Just try something different, try something new out of the box that you haven't tried before, or a new partnership or something like that. All right, just checking my notes if there's anything else I wanted to mention about this one in particular. Any questions? Okay. The GEAR grant. This is a relatively new opportunity. They did their first cycle last year. It's not exclusive to older adults, but it is all about enhancing providers' capacity to serve those who are eligible for medical assistance in home and community-based services. And so those could be folks who are, you know, eligible for CADI, for example, all the way to EW, et cetera. This RFP is not yet available, but we have heard that they are planning to do a second round in 2024. And ideally, I think they were hoping to release it in early 2024. So I just kind of keep checking it every week to see if it's open. And so far, it's not. From what we've heard, people had a lot of really good experiences the first time around. Last year, there were 5 tracks for applications with corresponding maximum request amounts between $100,000 and $250,000. And again, this is sort of a time limited funding opportunity. So about 1 year based on last year's RFP. That could change this year. The intended responders are current home and community-based service providers or those who want to become home and community-based service providers to serve older adults and people living with disabilities. And the emphasis is really on those who are intending to expand their types of service that they offer or to serve more people, particularly reaching populations that have historically been underserved. So that's rural and regional centers outside of the 7-county metro, American Indian and Indigenous people, Asian and Pacific Islander, Black and African-born, Latina, and LGBTQ plus populations. So that is sort of an essential component to this grant opportunity. But what they can help with, which I think is really cool, is they can help with enrollment to medical assistance waiver programs. They can help with expansion of culturally specific service delivery, translation or interpretation services, developing a new HCBS service line, expanding access to an unserved population or geographic region, establishing a billing system to bill medical assistance, and then again, reaching those rural and regional centers outside of the 7-county metro. So it's a neat new opportunity. And we have also heard that it sounds like they might be doing some other grants related to workforce development, which sound really cool. So just one to kind of keep an eye on and keep checking in with in the year ahead, I think. Again, you can see the 2023 recipients. There were a lot of them at the website that I have listed, which I will provide to you all. Any thoughts or questions about this one? All right. Age-friendly Minnesota grant. So similar to GEAR, relatively new grant program. Last year was their first year. The RFP is not yet available, but it will be available on the website that I'm providing. Because last year was last year, right? Last year was the first year. There's a lot of learning, so we don't know exactly what that RFP is going to look like in the year ahead. I would anticipate there might be some changes to sort of priority areas or scope. But this one is nice. Again, very broad scope of eligible responders to it. In the past year, we saw, local governments responding, nonprofits, for-profits, many, many different types of responders. And I think part of why it's so amenable to that is because it's really about systems and environmental changes and not about service necessarily. So your proposal might impact service, but this funding source is not going to provide you with dollars to do the direct service. So you've got to think about those systems change. What makes an age-friendly community? And think a little bit more on that level. Let's see here. They anticipate that the RFP will come out sometime this year, and it will be funding starting in January of 2025 through March of 2026. So a 15-month grant. And then what will happen beyond that, I'm not too sure at this point. But I would encourage you to go to the Age-Friendly Minnesota website. In addition to the grants website, there's an agefriendlyminnesota.org website that has lots of information about what has been done in the past year under this grant program, including recordings of a convening that was held in September. That was held in September of this past year. And there's just lots of good information on there. So check it out if you are unfamiliar with this opportunity and thinking that it could be a good fit for you and some of that sort of systems change, environmental change that you want to implement going forward. Related to this is that there is a current grant opportunity out there through AARP. So AARP sort of partnered with the World Health Organization to push this age-friendly model and initiative. And then Minnesota became an age-friendly state. But AARP is hosting offering a community challenge grant, which is open now through March 6th. Again, it's very competitive and it's a relatively small grant. I think their max is like around $10,000 or something like that. But it's just like a bonus project grant to some degree. So I would encourage you to check that out. And I will include that AARP Community Challenge grant in the resource document that I send out to you all.
Hey, Sarah, can I jump in here for a second?
By all means.
This is just a point of information. So I know that the state of Minnesota applied to be part of the network. Have they been certified age-friendly?
I believe we are officially an age-friendly state.
Okay.
I believe.
That's good.
But I could be wrong. All right. Just a note about a couple of other funding opportunities. I didn't list anything out super specifically here just because I wanted to be inclusive, not just of nonprofit, but all the different types of responders that might be in attendance. But just a shout out to when you're thinking about funding opportunities in the year ahead, to think beyond just anything that says it's specifically addressing aging, because you never know, you might be able to apply your project or initiative under something sort of unexpected. And so I just wanted to call it like the Minnesota Department of Health, the Department of Transportation, DEED, and others that might come along and have a grant opportunity, especially with how much legislation was passed, and how much money went along with it. We just don't know what other kinds of funding opportunities might come through the state, that you could even if it doesn't have a specific aging focus, you could apply your program or project to it. I'm thinking the Department of Health, for example, just toward the end of 2023 had a capacity strengthening initiative grant that was out, and it was really cool. So just know that these things, bubble up, and that was new. And if you are in connection with me, I will be sure to, let you know as these things come up too. And then thinking just of federal and national opportunities, of course, there are some aging specific national opportunities. Older Americans Act, which is administered locally, is a federal program. We at Trellis just went through a big RFP in 2023 for these funds. And so another RFP won't be open until 3 years from now or so. So just know that's something you can be thinking about, and something that you could be talking to your local EDP about in advance. And then there's, of course, private and family foundations. But like I said, there's often narrow eligibility guidelines, and there's only a handful that really have that very specific aging focus. And again, there could be an arts foundation where you're like, well, I want to do an arts program, so you can apply there. But just know that unfortunately, at this time, the landscape is such that aging is not always the number one priority for a lot of these smaller family foundations. And so we have to get creative about who we apply for and the projects that we're running for those funds. Let's see, I would encourage you all to sign up for the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits grant seeking email newsletter. And then also DHS and MDH both do a grant digest that I subscribe to, and that's how I keep in the know about what's coming out. And I'll be sure to include those in my little resource list. And then you could also sign up for the Trellis newsletter. We for sure notify when like Live Well at Home and MBA Dementia grant goes out. But we're working on a smaller email list for our EDP team that would include other smaller grant opportunities beyond just Live Well at Home and MBA Dementia grant. All right. So these preparing to apply bullet points are most specifically to those bigger state opportunities, but just encouraging you to really review that RFP and the supporting documents very carefully, just to ensure your eligibility and your priority alignment before you start putting in all the work into those applications, because they can be cumbersome. Attend the responders conferences if you can, and review the published question and answer document as well. These opportunities do tend to have a longer time span for when they're open, and so I really just encourage you to take advantage of that full RFP time span and not try to squeeze it in the last 2 weeks. It's just a lot. It's a lot. And then to engage your team, your colleagues in the process who are going to be potentially carrying out the grant or have some hand in it, so that everybody sort of knows what their responsibilities might be. But I think it also just informs a better grant, because then people can chime in and say, well, but what would that look like when we're all sort of working in our tunnel of our specific role. I think it can just make a stronger grant to include everybody. know that they are firm submission dates and time. So if it is a 4 p.m. close for that RFP, it's a 4 p.m. close. They aren't going to accept beyond that time. Again, I said this earlier, but just value and partnerships really, looking to who is in your community that you could partner with to carry out your work. And then ensuring that there is alignment between your need, your program, the impact, and the budget. Those things should all speak to each other in your proposals. All right. I will just talk about this very briefly, but across the state, there is technical assistance available to organizations who are seeking funds through Elder Care Development Partnership Coordinators. So this is a state, again, like a statewide service, really. And here in the 7-county metro, it is myself, Diane Graham-Raff, and Bill Tiedemann. I'm primarily focused on Anoka, Dakota, and Washington counties. Diane is primarily serving Ramsey County, and Bill is primarily serving Carver, Hennepin, and Scott counties. But we all have different strengths and areas of interest and backgrounds, and so you might work with one or more of us depending on your situation and your project that you want to carry out. So just wanted to put some faces to names for you all and encourage you to reach out to us. Some of the things that we can help with regard to technical assistance is, again, identifying those funding sources, exploring project concepts, partnerships, and current service landscape, reviewing your work plan or full grant proposal and offering feedback. We can support you in the completion of secondary documents, navigating project implementation and reporting, uplifting your impact story, and then advocacy for challenges and barriers to funding opportunities. So those are just a few of the things that we can do in support of you and these grant opportunities. And that's all I have. We can stop for questions, but please jot down my contact information, and I'll stop sharing so that we can chat a little bit.
So excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. Let's all round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very good. Also, welcome the real Scott Olson to the proposal, to the question. I do have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about this with some of the proposals being 2023 arriving in 2023, which was also the arrival of a large amount of money coming out of the state legislature. Are many of these programs unusually flush? Is this like a really good time to get it? And kind of how long? I just envision, boa constrictors where you can see the lump of the animal and it kind of moves through the process. It's going to take a while for the money that was set out last session to trickle through all of the channels, right? How long is that going to take? How long are we in some decent years here?
Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I do know that there is a lot of movement, and I think that's both like, it's sort of conflicting because it's causing delays in things getting out, but it's also it's also getting these really new, unique opportunities, bringing those to the table that folks can participate in. But what we don't know is really like, how long are they going to last? Are they going to be one time? Or are these going to be like Live Well at Home, where we can kind of count on it every year? We're not too sure.
Got it. Also, as Micah does community organizing around housing, I generally don't find a lot of match for increasing participation in public policy, which is kind of where I see Micah doing. When you were talking about the age-friendly, there is a little, it seemed that chunk of grants might be something that an organization like mine could go for if
Mhm.
we have, a focus program aimed at, organizing senior renters or something like that. Do you think that, how good a match do you think that is?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't count yourself out at this point because we don't know what that RFP is going to look like and where the priorities are going to land. But
Mhm.
but based on what I've seen in the past year, I guess you know, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Okay,
Hmm.
great, great. I see Scott, who needs to
Hey,
introduce
everybody.
himself.
He's
And
got
sorry I'm late. We just had a very intense driver training meeting, which is really good and needed, but a lot of Q&A afterwards. So yesterday I was on an advisory council or advisory committee for New Tracks, and Diane Graham Raff was on that call. She was talking more specifically to Live Well at Home on a couple different fronts, but I think she was alluding to a little bit of trellis possibility, and that is simply this, that in the past, there's been a lot of grant writing for a specific project, and then it kind of becomes a one and done. You may not be necessarily looked at again, but there was a little bit more interest from underwriters to say that if your grant project is ongoing and continuing and maybe growing in its exposure within community, that there's a lot of consideration that will now be made for that in the years to come. Is that going to hold true for Trellis as well?
with respect to Older Americans Act dollars.
That I don't, she
Or
didn't mention that.
okay. I don't know. I do know that there was additional funding allotted to Live Well at Home. But again, I don't know what that's going to look like, and that's probably what Diane was kind of speaking to. But I can't answer with how Trellis is necessarily going to move forward with that too, because it's our funding administration is so specific to Older Americans Act funds, and really we have to follow those federal guidelines related to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I would just love to say, Sarah, for the team that's on the call here, I would like to just throw a shout out to Trellis for what they've done, because for the last, we're going on, I think, our 4th grant program with Trellis to ensure that our sustainability for now with our community loops and the growth for these community loops in and around Ramsey County and Washington County. It's very much an interest from a Trellis standpoint because it's serving seniors. And I just wish to thank you for everything that you've done to help us with that.
We're very grateful for all of our community partners and for being able to be in these spaces with you all.
Great. Actually, Jordy, you came in just after our introduction came. And so now I'm going to ask you if you have any questions and also to introduce yourself, kind of who you are, what your agency is, and how you're doing today.
Okay, so yeah, I don't have any questions, but I can introduce myself. So I'm Jordy Teatswe, and I work for ISD 622. So North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale, and I'm based at the Gladstone Community Education Center, and I oversee the adult and senior programs, Community Bridge, which is adult with disabilities, and Meals on Wheels.
Excellent, excellent. Rachel or Jenny, do you have anything burning in your mind? Did you see any matches? Did you look at that and go, oh, that might be something that we could reach for? Or have you had any of these grants before?
Yeah, we were just funded in 2023 with Live Well at Home. Unfortunately, for how long their process took, it's only giving us about 6 months of funding.
Oh, no.
No.
So, because we only applied for a year and then it took 6 months to get it really contracted. So we do look to reapply to continue our project, and this is looking at the expansion of our transportation services for Washington County north of 96. So we really definitely want to tie in the Hugo community, and some of the White Bear Lake area as well. You know, it'll be a little bit, you know, yeah. So we're working on it. But we also want to, of course, you know, continue to provide really kind of a broad range and safety net for the folks that we do serve. And so some of this work around dementia, we wanted to better understand as well how we could maybe have a role in it in the future. So yeah, it's just all good stuff. It's good to be part of these collaboratives too, to better understand how some of this age-friendly work from a systems level, how folks like us can affect that in Washington, Ramsey. I personally live over in Oakdale, so you know, a lot of the Ramsey County stuff is important to me as well. So right on that border.
Great. Jenny, it also looks like you have snow behind you. Is that
I know. It's my lighting.
okay?
No snow yet, but you know, it could come later on this afternoon. We are actually a recipient of the Minnesota Age Friendly Grant. And it really has, I appreciated Sarah, like, because I think Rachel had said too, kind of that planning process that usually isn't covered in grants. This really is. And it's allowed us to slow down and ask good questions to say, what are we really trying to do here? And figure that out. And so that has really been a really good experience for us here at Family Means as we look for more information to support seniors in specific areas here in Washington County.
Great. Scott?
Rachel, just a quick question for you. Is the grant monies, is that part of your volunteer driver program that you're expanding? Okay, good.
Correct. We
I think
did.
we should-
Yeah, I was gonna say, we applied for Live Well at Home since 2020 and no luck, but we were kind of broadly looking at our Thrive program. And then last year, when they specifically pulled transportation as one of those 5 priority areas in Live Well at Home, we're like, bingo, let's scale this to exactly what we really need to do, which is expand volunteer driver services. So yeah, the funding is targeted to volunteer driver expansion.
Good. We should probably talk
Mhm.
offline sometime just because of the loops that we're doing in Hugo, in White Bear,
Correct.
and Montemita, and
I
Stillwater.
thought of that at
And
the other
so-
meeting we were on a few weeks ago. So,
Yeah.
so good to hear. And say, Jenny, I would love to, I want to hear more about how we can maybe partner on, you've got the caregiving, you've got the dementia down path, but how do we better educate our folks in our warm environment and then funnel them to you if needed? So that's kind of where we're looking to.
Rachel, I know I can help you grow the individual ride service. I'm getting requests all the time and would love to connect people with you.
So Julia, or I know that coming in on the phone is sometimes a little off-putting for the person on it. Katie, I see Julia's come on. Your thoughts?
I got nothing. It's great information. I'm looking forward to getting that on paper. And then I think based on this meeting that I will send out both the paper summary that Sarah sends us and the recording of this meeting, because there's so much great information here. So that's all I got. Did you want something else?
No. Well, the solution to all the world's problems, and also a winter that somehow was as warm as this one was, but also gave us the snow that the plants and the animals and the environment need.
So I have 2 answers to that. Well, 2 answers, one answer. One is the fall of white supremacy. And the other is that I just came across my phone that Republicans are potentially trying to gut Social Security. So,
Oh, lovely.
I don't know more than that. I just saw the headline, but I
Yep.
think we need to be contacting our elected representatives.
Yep. To advocate in a nonpartisan fashion for the people that will not gut Social Security. So,
Yes.
Kate, anything from Phoneland?
From Phoneland, it was really great just hearing all the opportunities that are out there and how it's been able to support things in our community. My particular businesses run on a different way for funding and so forth. It's through bigger organizations that already exist. But what I love is that there are ways to support the community and let other organizations that would benefit from this know about these opportunities. Because I think it's always the hardest part of getting the information out there. So thank you for sharing it today.
Great. So I've written mostly private foundation grants for MICA, and done a couple of state and county. And when I was at Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity, I watched the staff that was dedicated to federal grants. It's my impression that the nonprofit foundation asks you to talk about your organization, demonstrate your need, make your case. But as you go to county, state, and these other levels, there's just a lot of technical overhead that has to happen in those grants. And when I was looking at the list of stuff that you at Trellis have done, I'm like, oh, it seems to me that you're helping folks bridge that. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think that's what I mean, to the best of our ability, because some of those hoops are just there and there's nothing we can do about them, but or we can try, but it takes a lot of time. And so especially in this EDP role, really just trying to help folks to navigate those systems to make that funding feel more accessible, because it is it feels like a different language sometimes reading some of the supplementary documents that you have to complete, and it can feel very overwhelming and out of reach, but we want folks to feel empowered to try, because that's where really cool, innovative programming is going to come out of.
Great. So thank you, Sarah, for A, giving us what you've got, and B, we're looking forward to your documents.
Yeah.
That you will be sending out. I'm like, I'm the host of this meeting. I wonder, and there's the screen getting shared. Can I cut and paste off that link? Can I hit those links? And I'm like, nope, can't do it. Not off the screen share. Chat's great for that stuff too, but we'll definitely, just a double check with the class board members online. I think that we can send this to all of our networking contacts. They're online to get info for us. So we will send out, if you get the class networking emails, you will be getting Sarah's golden cheat sheet on 2024 grant opportunities.
So who should I send that to, John? Just to
You can send it to me.
send it to you? Perfect. Okay, I will do that.
Or you could send it to class.executive. Is that it? class.executive@gmail.com?
Executive team.
Executive? Okay.
Okay,
Executive team.
Executive team. Okay.
I will do that.
Yep. Good. Well, I've no problem myself with ending a few minutes early. I did. It wasn't until Kate texted me saying, "Are we recording?" that I hit recording. So we missed all of our intros and a little tiny bit of Sarah's start, but all of the really great links are going to be included in that recording as well. So good. Any final questions, comments? Everybody got their
Thank you, Sarah. This
shovels.
was great
numbered up?
information. Great.
Yes, again.
Thank you.
Happy to
All right.
provide it.